Good evening and welcome back to Prime of Midlife. It's Friday evening. I have survived a whole week without Mandy being at work. She's never allowed off for any longer than a week, and I don't expect her to be off for any length of time for at least 6 months. Just in case you're watching, Mandy. We got through it, we survived. The office is still standing, so all is well in my world. This evening I am talking food scarcity and the cost of living crisis. Um, there was a survey done of 15,000 people, the ONS, so the Office for National Statistics, did a survey of 15,000 people. And 92% of those 15,000 people thought that the most important thing affecting them at the moment was the cost of living crisis. And I think the second most important thing was the NHS. And I can't even remember what the third most important thing was. But immigration, which seems to be what the UK government is trying to push as top of the agenda most of the time just now, was not really on anyone's radar. The cost of living is what is affecting them. And I think, what is it, they said the average rent is now £750 per month for a room, not for a house, not for a flat, for a room. And then you've got the increased prices in food, etc., etc. So, for all the headlines seem to have disappeared about the cost of living crisis, it's not suddenly got better. It's not suddenly got easier. And people are having to cut their cloth to suit, which a lot of us are managing, kind of. Some of us are really struggling. I think, 5% of people have run out of food and have had no money to get any more. That's quite a hefty percentage if you think about how many people are actually sitting there with no food in the house. So, yeah, interesting thoughts, but there was another headline I read somewhere that said, I didn't actually read the article to be honest, but the headline was like, we need to stop relying on the government to get us out of these situations. And I thought, well, they got us into it. So why are we suffering? But it is what it is. So the best thing I can think of is, how do we get through it? And I have to say, in the last year, the fact that I have managed to stockpile little bits so that if I'm struggling, I've got something there, that has helped me immensely in so many ways. Either from when I am struggling money wise, when it's the week before payday. Even Kathleen and I were laughing about that. When she was young and I was a single parent with in a housing association flat with a rent, and I was only working part time, she was at school, and everything was geared for trying to get as much as we can. And she realised very quickly, if she asked for something, if I said it's the week before payday, she wasn't getting anything. Nothing was happening. We were barely going to survive. I remember she was so excited about having pancakes for breakfast. That's because there was no bread, there was no cereal, there was a bag of self-raising flour, because I always have flour, and there was a couple of eggs in the fridge that were probably not in date, but were still perfectly edible. So I made pancakes for breakfast. Kathleen thought this was really, really special. It was. It was, oh my goodness, if I don't find something, we're not eating before you go to school. So there's a lot of people doing that. A lot of people struggling, trying to put things together. And yeah, you've got the government saying, well, not our problem. How do we get around it? I would say stockpile if you can, help each other if you can, donate to the food banks. If you've got a garden, please grow something better than I am, because I'm rubbish at it. But yeah, I think we're going to have to start helping each other, because years ago in the 70s, when it was a 3-day week, etc., communities were closer knit, so we would look after each other. It's not so much now because people have moved to get better jobs, to get better homes, etc. If you're in one of the touristy beach places, do you know, it's a lot of Airbnb. There's nowhere to live that's affordable now. And that brings me on to the scarcity. There's a report about the new EU regulations coming in. Seemingly, we've already had the regulations for stuff going from the UK to the EU. But there's new regulations coming in about things coming from the EU into us. And if it's an animal product, it's got to have been checked by a vet, which is like £700. And then there's another check that has to be done, which is another however much. And then there's the admin, which is another however much. And there's a thought going around that, oh my goodness, we're not going to get food in from the EU. Now, in some ways, you could think that's going to be like, oh my goodness, we're not going to have the food. I don't think we're not going to have the food. I think we're still going to be perfectly all right. We're just going to have to change how we eat. Now, when I was young, you didn't have salad in November or December. You know, you maybe, if you were really lucky, had prawn cocktail to start with for your Christmas dinner. So, you know, one lettuce in December, that was about it. We had soup, we had stews, we had roasted veggies and stuff. That's what we ate in the winter. We didn't have salad, we didn't have peppers, we didn't have citrus fruits all year round, etc. And I think that's the way we're going to have to go back to. We're going to have to grow what we can in our garden, and we're going to have to eat seasonally with what's here in the UK. Because although they're saying that we import huge amounts of tomatoes from wherever, and eat something different. It's not that we're going to run out of food. I don't think there's going to be a food scarcity. I think what we are going to have to do is change what we eat. Start looking at what we can grow ourselves. Start looking at what's seasonal. Start looking at what we're going to be able to get in the shops, your local farmers, farm shops, honesty boxes at the end of farm roads. Anything like that. So yeah, and best of all, if you can dehydrate, if you can, if you can store, then do. Try and give yourself a cushion. Because as I say, much as I don't think it's going to be a food scarcity, if nothing else, certainly up here in Scotland, if you get snowed in, it's better to have a stock. Because I have been in the situation, I remember Kathleen and I going up the road and it was -16, it was reading on my van. -16. I had never known that in my life. The reason we went up the street is because the snow was starting and the forecast was that we were going to get snowed in, and we were. The lorries couldn't get through into the local town, so the local shops couldn't stock up. The way the weather's going, I don't know what's going to happen. I'm going to make sure I'm stocked up for winter. As I say, I don't think there's going to be food scarcity as long as you're prepared to change just exactly what you eat and when you eat it. Now that it's Friday night, and now that I've told you my thoughts, I am going to go and pour myself a drink. I'm going to relax, and I'm going to not move all night. I have had an exhausting week. I've gone into work every day an hour early because Mandy was off. So now I'm going to go and relax. Have a great Friday night. Catch you later.